Hi everyone, this is Jim. Welcome to this postmortem of my Blitz game number 646. Now my opponent started off with the very unusual move c3. You can see that's way down on the list. The point of a move like this is to kind of get your opponent out of book. You can see we're in a very rare line, so nobody will have studied this, but it does give away the opening advantage. So after this and throughout the opening, the position is basically even. Black equalizes from move one, which is usually a difficult thing to do, to equalize with black out of the opening. If your opponent knows what he's doing, he can keep some pressure on right away. So he gives up the opening advantage, but in exchange, white gets positions that are different. So and maybe white has more experience with these positions than black does. But it is just giving up the opening advantage, realistically. So he goes for d4, and we get, in spite of what I said about it being a different kind of position, we get a position which is pretty similar to a lot of positions that I've played. I just go with normal developing moves. Put a pawn in the center, develop the knight to support it. Let's see. And he goes with bishop g5. And you see the numbers go up and down. It's kind of interesting. If he had played knight f3 here, we'd be back into more trodden territory. At this point, the position sort of resembles a Trompowsky, where a couple of extra pawn moves have been played. So this early bishop maneuver to harass the knight. But let's see. Yeah, I guess the Trompowsky is when d5 has been played. I was trying to think. Anyway, so one of the moves here is knight e4, harassing the bishop. But I was just going for a simple setup with e6. He goes knight f3. I go bishop e7 to block the pin. I didn't especially want to recapture with the pawn there, so I was trying to keep this diagonal open the whole time. So if he had taken earlier, I would have retaken with the queen, and now I'll be able to retake with the bishop. And also my knight is now free to move. Let's see, he went e3 here. So we're out of the opening book for a second, but you see we're always sort of dancing around the edges of moves that have been played before. So we are near to known positions. Anyway, I could play c5 here. I think that's a fine way for black to respond, since white is playing kind of quietly, grab a little more space in the center. And I get something like that in a bit. But I kick the bishop first. He drops back. And I play b6. So I'm building up to c5. I want to be able to recapture with the pawn and not displace my bishop. He goes bishop to d3, developing his pieces logically. I go bishop e7, it's knight bd2. And now I go c5. You'll see if I had gone knight e4 here, we'd be in the opening book again, but I went c5, setting up this position, and now he castled. But if he had played knight e5 here, we'd also be in known position. Anyway, all this is okay because basically we're just doing normal developing moves. And right here we're actually in the opening book. He goes rook to e1, preparing the pawn push e4, and I castled. And now he plays e4. And that's actually a mistake, and we're finally out of the opening book. Although it's not obvious just looking at the position why it's a mistake, but it just turns out to be a poorly timed break. And we'll look at some lines that show that. But basically, black ends up either with a good position or wins a pawn outright. And there was actually, I had a chance to win a pawn during the game, and I didn't take it. So e4 right here is a mistake. The opening book suggestion was knight to e5, which seems like a logical way to play here. Just putting that knight forward, maybe supporting it later with f4, or perhaps dropping the bishop back at some point. This is a typical kind of position that you get out of these systems, the call system, the Torre attack, the London system. They all have this similar kind of flavor. There's a very solid center for white, and a slow build up to a kingside attack. Let's see. Another move here suggested by the chess engine is to play with queen e2. And then, I could try hopping in with knight e4 and get this kind of exchange. And this is also about even. This knight kind of looks like an annoying piece supported by the bishop, but I guess white can find various strategies to try and undermine it. He's already got a couple pieces lined up looking at that, so it keeps me tied down trying to defend it. Anyway, those are just different ways to play here. E4, as I said, is just a mistake. And so I take. That's the reasonable way to start out. He takes back, and I take back. I mean, I usually find these kind of positions pretty comfortable for black anyway. These exchanges seem to help black in some way, maybe because black is a little bit cramped. But normally this knight, I have to say, is on d7, and after the exchanges on e4, this knight hops into f6, harassing whatever piece lands on e4 and gains kind of a tempo for black. So I wasn't entirely sure if these exchanges were going to work out to my favor. Let's see. Let's back up. I didn't take back right away. I took the d pawn first, and then I took with the knight. Now, to avoid some difficulties, the chess engine is recommending let's back up, not taking back right away, but throwing in this knight takes f6 move. Try and eliminate some pieces, and with these exchanges, draw my queen away from the center, and then take on d4. So throwing in those intermediate moves before taking here. This still looks pretty good for black. The rook, one of the rooks will come over to d8 and put pressure on the d pawn, and that seems like that's worth a lot for white. That would be slightly better than what he played. It just shows that white's already in trouble here, kind of no matter what he does, but that was the best line according to the chess engine. Anyway, he took back immediately. That makes sense. Now I grabbed on e4. He takes back. And bishop takes. Oh, he took on e7. Okay, and right here I have a tactic. So this is the chance I missed. This would be the clearest way to gain an advantage. So let's just pause and consider this situation. He's just throwing in an intermediate move. Instead of taking my knight back immediately, he's throwing in this. He's throwing in this bishop takes bishop here, hitting my queen. So if we count the pieces are all even, but a couple of things are hanging. His bishop is hanging. I can just take it, which is what I did. My knight is hanging, and he can just take that. So if we go down that path, it all stays even. But other things are hanging too. My queen is hanging, and but it's my turn to move. And it turns out that I have an intermediate move here. So you meet one intermediate move with another one. So if you want to pause the video at this point, see if you can find the move for black here. Okay, I'm going to tell you the answer now. So yeah, pause the video if you want some time to think about it. The answer is I can throw in knight takes f2. Even though my queen is under attack after knight takes f2, his queen is under attack. So this is a typical desperado tactic. This knight is going to be lost anyway. I just need to find a way of moving it with tempo. And if I can do that, then I can capture his bishop. So I grab this pawn, and I'm hitting his queen. And we can either go down the paths of exchanging queens, and I'll just stay a pawn up, or if he takes the knight, I'll take the bishop, and I've just gained a pawn. We both have two minor pieces now, but I won the f2 pawn. So pretty simple tactic, but somehow these can be hard to spot when you're in the middle of the heat of battle and there's all these exchanges going on. But after each exchange, it's worthwhile asking yourself, is there something I can do here? Okay, so I didn't spot that. I just took back. And we get this kind of position. He takes, I take, he takes with the rook. I bring my knight to f5. Let's back up. Let's see, knight f5 is not the best move here. But as a result of those exchanges, even though I didn't play the best moves, I still have pressure against this isolated queen's pawn, and a lot of pieces have been traded. So the side with the isolated queen's pawn typically wants to keep the pieces on. So as we go towards an endgame, this becomes more and more of a weakness. And so black has an advantage here. The chess engine thinks the best way to proceed is leave the knight there. It's restraining this pawn from coming forward, and just develop. So rook to c8, say queen to d2 to get behind the pawn, queen to c7, rook over to d1, and then queen to c2. just trading off more pieces, further weakening this pawn. If the closer we get to an endgame, the better off black's position is, and that's the simplest way to get to an endgame. So that's best play here. I played knight f5, and this does give him one opportunity to liquidate his pawn. He can push the pawn forward here, and after I take, he gets a lot of activity. He sacks that pawn, but well, he can play rook e5, harassing my knight there. And if I play queen f6, defending the knight, I just lose the pawn immediately. If I try to hold on to the pawn, then my pieces are a little bit awkwardly placed, and now the tables are turned. Now white can pile up on my pawn and pretty much equalize. I mean, black still has the extra pawn, so black's a little bit better, but that is the best white can do here. And knight f5 gives him that opportunity to push that d pawn forward and create those conditions. So that was why knight f5 was a bit of a mistake. Anyway, but I played knight f5, and he played queen e2. So he didn't go for this chance to dissolve his pawn, but just went for the attack, a typical strategy with the isolated queen's pawn. But he's down a little bit in material, so the attack is not quite as forceful, not enough to justify the weaknesses that he's taken on. So black's still better here. So I bring my queen up off the back rank, plays rook to d1, defending his pawn. And yeah, there's a long sequence of moves here where both sides are playing pretty well. So let's just go through this. These are, pretty logical moves. Rook f to d8, more pressure on the d pawn. h3. Oh yeah, he's preparing a pawn storm on the king side. I go knight to e7. So that knight f5 venture didn't amount to anything. I never managed to get enough pressure with the knight on f5 to actually win that pawn. So I'm looking for some other place for the knight. Let's see. He hops in with his knight to e5, and I went knight to d5. So I just took up that solid blockading square, and I'm just trying to survive to the end game, I guess, and then try and trade some pieces off and go after the weakness there. But I had better ways to get to the end game. Anyway, he goes queen f3. I go rook back to f8. That's a bit of a mistake. Rook to f8. Oh, no. Rook to f8 here is okay. Yeah, that pawn was under attack and I needed to defend it. Later on, I move my rook back to f8 another time. Let's see, he plays a3. I go rook a to c8, getting my other rook out. He goes rook to e2. Cancel that. Drops his rook back to e2. Okay, he's defending the second rank there. Yeah, I was threatening to invade. I go rook to c7, lifting my rook up to the second rank. Also defending f8. From f7 here from the side. He goes g3, pushing those pawns forward. I go rook f to c8. So I'm doubling on the c file and threatening to penetrate. And then he decides to go for the kingside attack here with h4. I go knight back to f6. Maybe trying to slow down these pawns. He goes g4 anyway. And I go queen to d5. He goes queen to f4. I was offering a trade of queens there, but this actually puts my queen on a pretty good diagonal, and the queen trade would have been a big help to me, so he avoids it, tries to keep the attack going. And here, I was a little worried about him chasing the knight away and getting pressure on the f-pawn, and I played rook back to f8. This is the rook to f8 that was a mistake. That's kind of a retreating move, and this rook is defending that pawn from the side at the moment, so there's no immediate danger for that pawn, even if the knight gets chased away. I think I just wasn't quite seeing all the tactics clearly. Although also, I did want to move this knight down, this rook down to the second rank here and try and penetrate, which would leave this a bit unprotected. But if I play rook to f8, I'm not being able to penetrate with that rook anyway. So I might as well just sit here like this. Let's see. The chess engine is recommending, leaving these two pawns here and trying to activate the queen. The queen on b3 is kind of interesting. Looking across the third rank here, and then also vacating the d5 square. So if you were to play rook d to e1, also, queen b3 also hit the rook, and then the knight hops into d5. The chess engine likes this position for black, and it's a good spot for the knight. This rook is still defending against the attack. Queen's over here looking to harass white. It's a bit of a tricky way to play, though, because it seems like the queen is abandoning the king while these pawns are coming forward and the rooks are menacingly lined up. So I would say, as a human, that would be a very difficult way to play. Anyway, I brought this rook over to defend. It does have the advantage of freeing this rook up to move, but there's no way to get to the second rank anymore. Anyway, he pushes on with g5. I take, he takes, and I play knight to h5. And all of this is in the range of about even to slightly better for black. So the attack is really not quite working, but it's worth trying. You got to penetrate and put pressure on, and your opponent will slip up many times. So g6 defending the knight. He goes rook to e3, wanting to swing the rook over. Let's see, I went king to g7. So I'm preparing to bring my rook over here and try and chase his queen away. And then he played rook to d2, which is a huge blunder. Again, his idea is to keep my rook off the second rank, but well, it left some weaknesses behind. So if you want to spot the tactic here, here's a good chance to pause the video and look for it. Okay, I'm giving the answer away now. There's actually a forced mate on the board because the queen is controlling this diagonal. He gave that up when he avoided the trade, and when he lifted his rook, he gave up the back rank. So just rook to c1 wins here. He can put off the mate for a couple of moves. He can block with this rook and then block with this rook, but I can just take them. Eventually his king has to move, and after his king moves, then the rook comes in. Yeah, and the knight is guarding this escape square, so that's just checkmate. So pretty cool little tactic. Anyway, I didn't spot that at this move. I was still thinking about bringing my rook over to harass his queen, which I did, and then he played his queen back to h2, and I played rook to c1 check now because I realized if I could drive his king to this square, then I could play the check here and win his queen. And that's what my commentary said during the game. But rook to c1 check is actually just mate. He can't go to that square because my queen is covering it. So once again, we're in the situation where he can only put off mate for a couple moves by blocking with his rooks. But it's game over, and he resigned. So nice game. Hope you guys enjoyed this. Leave any comments you have in the section below, and I will see you again soon. Bye.